You're listening to Emmy Award-winning host Jordan J. Adams.
We have a very informative show in store for us today, especially if you're an athlete or are interested in sports performance. We're talking about a guy who has his master's from Purdue University in Biological Sciences and Exercise Physiology. He also has a master's from the University of Vermont in Nutritional Sciences, and he has a doctorate of Physiology in Exercise and earned his postdoctoral fellowship from Washington University School of Medicine. It is a heavy hitter we got in store for us today. It's time for us to make our fighting weight. And let's welcome to the show Dr. Paul Arciero. Paul, how are you?
Jay, I'm doing fantastic, and thanks for inviting me. I'm really excited about this.
I am too. It's really exciting for us to be able to talk to somebody who has such horsepower in the nutrition and exercise space, so we know we'll get some real high-end information. So if you would, please tell us a little bit about yourself and how you get into nutrition and exercise physiology.
I'm asked this question a lot, and at first I used to be a little bit hesitant, a little bit embarrassed to talk about it, but I've grown through that, and the reason is because when I came into it, it was very selfish. It was egocentric. I wanted to find the answer to help me perform at a higher level. I was a tennis player growing up, played all through college. I even played over in Europe, played on the satellite tour over in Europe, and man, my nutrition knowledge was just egocentric. It was how could I play better? But you know what I found? I found over time that I was more fulfilled. I got more out of my ability to understand how to maximize my performance by sharing it with others. And so, listen, this is a total treat, a total joy for me to be able to do the same now. And so I've committed myself to my professional career to finding as many answers as I can now, not just for myself, but of course, for my loved ones, my family, and people I consult with. And so this is where it's at, and this is what drives me. This is what motivates me. So my nutritional questions are just fueling the fire for everybody else along with myself.
Well, when you look at all the sheepskins you've piled up in the space, you know that it's a real passion because it takes so much work to get through. I mean, just to get a bachelor's, it takes so much work. So with all those masters and, of course, the doctorate, we know you love this space. So let's take advantage of your scientific background and apply science today to help our fighters and, indeed, all athletes learn the absolute best fuels for their body that would help their sports performance.
Absolutely. I mean, that's essentially what it's about. You're right. I mean, for fighters who are at the extreme end of conditioning, the extreme end of exercise intensity, I mean, when you watch these guys, it's just so inspiring to see the level of output they're generating constantly. And so nutrition is fueling it. The best trainer, I tell people all the time, listen, nutrition trumps exercise all the time. And these guys know that firsthand, that their ability to generate what they do every day, day in and day out, is fueled by the nourishment that they're putting into their body. So this is what I've devoted my life to, and this is what fires me up. So I'd love to dive into it.
Well, there are essentials of nutrition, and there are essentials that we should know. I think all of us know, we've heard protein, we've heard complex carbs, we've heard hydration. How does it all kind of come together, like when and how? I've heard timing is a big thing. So how does it all come together in terms of putting it all together into one protocol?
Yeah. Listen,
small little question for you.
Small little question, yeah. We got a year to figure this out, right? No, there really are some basic tenets to this, and I would say that the best starting place for people is what they're doing when they first wake up. Before we went on air, you and I had this little conversation about what we both do, but it serves just as well for the highly conditioned athlete, that you need to start your day with a low glycemic, complex, unrefined carbohydrate with that solid source of protein. And so for different people, some people like to start off with a meat type of a protein. Others want to start off with some egg-based products. Some like to start off with pure whey protein or some other pure vegetable powder source of protein. But that has to be the starting point. And the reason is because your day has to start with that low sugar to prevent that high insulin spike so that your blood glucose is staying stable, but then also to put you in that state of fat oxidation, that state of fat burning that is so favorable. Why? Because it provides us that massive amount of energy that we need to utilize while we're performing. So there has to be that start to the day that is of low glycemic, unprocessed carbohydrates, and then that balance of that healthy lean protein source. So the start to the day is the key, for sure.
And then throughout the day, are you also mixing your proteins with your carbs and oils, or do you skew paleo, or do you skew carb vegetarian? What do you do throughout the day to maintain that high state of energy?
Yeah. So let me just speak from a personal research standpoint. So I was able to answer this question in a group of men and women. I was intrigued by this concept of a little bit more frequent eating, 4 to 6 times a day, with this balanced ratio of carbohydrate, protein to fat. And what I found unquestionably, at least in my research study that was published in the journal Obesity, was that this frequent intake of this high-quality protein source, and for some people it was a vegetarian source. They were doing pea, a combination of pea, hemp protein, but for the majority of them it was some type of whey protein based as often as they could, particularly when they were working out or after they worked out, or it was a combination of healthy protein with that level of oils that they need found in fish. So I'm a huge proponent of fish, whether it's sushi, raw fish, or some other form. But that balance of those healthy omega-3s with that high-quality source of protein, along with those unrefined carbs, was critical. So I am a proponent. I think the paleo is right on target. It's got that lean, healthy source of animal protein coming in with the vegetables, which is critical, and the healthy omega-3s that we know turns on protein synthesis inside the body. So my recommendation for people is, there's this talk right now about whether timing is truly of essence for people to maximize their performance. And I would say, personally, the higher level of training we achieve and we're striving for, the more timing plays a role. So for athletes out there, and they know this, that they know that their timing of this high-quality source of protein around the time that they're training, particularly, is critical to fuel that muscle protein synthesis response.
This question just came to mind because it's been the edge that I've looked for a long time. Is it possible to maintain, and even more importantly, to increase lean body mass and to burn fat at the same time? Because my experience, at least to date, is that I can do one or the other. I can either put on muscle, but I'm going to put on some fat too, or I can cut, much like a bodybuilder would cut, and burn fat and get the six-pack, but then everything else deflates. I can't keep my arms. I can't keep any kind of size.
Right.
Sort of one or the other. I can have kind of the marathon look and have a six-pack, or I can be kind of a big, thick, rugby-looking dude, but I'm going to have a belly too. Can you do both? I want both. Lean and jacked.
Lean and jacked.
Talk to me.
Listen, I'm going to give you a resounding yes. I mean, there's no question. I'll give you an example. Back in September, I had a woman come in who had struggled with her weight her entire life, and she tipped the scales when she came to see me at over 200 pounds. She's now weighing 150, and she has gained more than 10 pounds of lean body mass. Wow. I'll say that again. She came in at over 200 pounds. I just weighed her this morning because she's in a research study I'm conducting, and she weighed in at just barely over 150. So she's lost 50 pounds since September, but put on 10 pounds of muscle mass, lean body mass, and that's as measured by the DEXA. So the DEXA, the iDEXA is, GE's, state-of-the-art body composition analysis. And when you see results like that, in a woman who's 62 years old, by the way, that raises some eyebrows. So, yeah, I mean, it can be done. It can be done unquestionably. And the way to do it, so to kind of...
Oh, that's what we're thinking. And that's my next question. How do we do it?
Yeah. How you do it is by maintaining a constant flow of the things that we've just talked about. She's on a whey protein supplement. It's a whey protein concentrate, but she's taken her healthy omega-3s. She's eating her unprocessed grains when she needs to, when she needs that stabilization of blood sugar and that supply of glucose fled in the muscles without a high insulin spike. And she's powering down, the leafy greens. So she's got the leafy greens coming in. She's got the root vegetables when needed, and the unprocessed legumes and other whole grains, quinoa, but that and then the whey protein. And so she's doing it, and she's not even by any means training at the level of a highly conditioned athlete. She's doing a fairly reasonable level of exercise without overdoing it. So it can be done. Yeah, she's on probably a 4 to 5 time a day feeding pattern, but hitting it when she needs to at the right time with the right foods.
So let me try regurgitating it, no pun intended. Let me try regurgitating it and see if I've got the protocol. Get up in the morning, make sure you mix a nice protein with a nice slow stubborn carb with some good oil. Start off not spiking that glycemic blood, so you're not starting that whole sugar roller coaster of needing to get that blood sugar up every hour and getting inflammation in the body. So protein and oil throughout the day with lots of fiber, lots of greens, and see if you can do it 7 or 8 times a day. Is that the formula to increase lean body mass to fat ratio?
That's the number one formula. That's exactly what she's following. And again, that feeding pattern is going to vary for levels of activity, but for people that want to maximize lean body mass in terms of lean body mass accretion and fat burning, fat oxidation, what we call lipolysis, that is the answer. That more frequent feeding pattern, those healthy oils coming in. And I mentioned this to you also earlier that we oftentimes look at the healthy oils as that key player in reducing inflammation, as providing us those essential oils that the cells of our body thrive on, that allow cellular processes to function a little bit better. But evidence is showing now that those healthy omega-3 fatty acids that we derive from things like flax and chia seeds and all the healthy fish oils, krill, that's actually linked to an increase in protein synthesis. So I know when you think about protein synthesis and the accumulation of lean body mass, our immediate focus turns to the healthy protein, the complete, the right 20 amino acid proteins that we need to turn on leucine, that we need to turn on lean body mass. Well, now we're finding evidence that if you provide other macronutrient players, in this case the omega-3 fatty acids, that's also helpful. So I'm a big proponent now, particularly in response to the evidence that I've shown in my laboratory, is recommending that lean protein that we're so accustomed to hearing about eating around our exercise regimen to also include omega-3 fatty acids. Yeah, novel, but let's shake it up.
I love it, and that's really good information, and I'm sure there's a few people out there right now trying to rewind their Stitcher or rewind their iTunes to say, what did he just say? And if I heard it correctly, when you're taking in those good oils, those omega-3s, and you're taking in protein, we used to think that they were separate. We knew they were both good for you, but now to find out that they're more than the sum of their parts, if I'm hearing you correctly, so it's not 1 + 1 = 2 anymore. It's now a synergistic relationship. Is that correct?
You nailed it. Synergistic. Absolutely. Yeah. And ultimately, that's what we're trying to get to. We're trying to get to that special sauce mixture that does work synergistically. That's super additive, we call it in the scientific realm. So we want things to be super additive, not just in that simple formula of, this plus this is going to give us this. It's this plus this is going to give us twice as much as that. And so, yeah, I think that's part of the answer. And I'm a big fan of antioxidant mixtures along the way because those help quench those naturally generated free radicals that we're generating when we exercise, right? So our body's going to naturally come to the defense of those free radicals that are generated through which we produce through the exercise we do, and that's a healthy response, right? Our superoxide dismutase and glutathione peroxidase. I mean, all those things are going to happen naturally in response to when we exercise. But when we can provide a little bit extra of whole food and, if necessary, supplementation of some of these antioxidants to help fuel that process and nourish that self-defense system, I'm a huge proponent of it, because then what happens is it provides more opportunity for all of those favorable cellular responses, in this case muscle protein synthesis, anti-inflammatory responses, to occur a little bit easier.
You mentioned taking carbs and proteins together. Now, for some strict paleo people, dumping those carbs into the system is a no-no, because you know where I'm going, because it's going to knock you out of ketosis.
Yep.
And there's a lot of paleo guys who love running on ketones because they say they're more clear-headed, more shredded, more just feeling better about the world. Where do you fall in the world in terms of running on glucose versus running on ketones?
Yeah, great question. I'm glad you asked that. Listen, if it's working right now, and that the ketone environment milieu is what you're benefiting from, I'd say stay at it. And again, when you're in that environment, people who respond favorably to it know how to tweak it. They know how to perturb it just enough that in the case that they feel like they need a little bit of glucose, they need a little bit of healthy carb circulating through the body, they can do that, and they can balance that. Others, I think it's a little bit more of a havoc that occurs if they try to go paleo and they start to feel that the tank running on E, and they end up blowing it out by drinking a glass of orange juice or something. So it's a little bit harder for those people. So I would say it's got to be individual. So here's my response though. I think if there are individuals that don't want to run into that complete ketosis paleo type of a state, right now the big buzz are dietary resistant starches, and I'm doing research with it right now, so I have some firsthand information, and it is absolutely mind-blowing stuff right now. And when I analyze the data and make my glucose area under the curve charts, you know what I'm getting at?
Oh,
and
that's great.
this is
news here. We're breaking news.
Oh, this is breaking news.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, of course, because it's not published data, but it's eyebrow popping for me, because I'm seeing this firsthand, and this is in people every day, walks of life, women. Right now I'm testing it primarily in women, but I have two groups of women that I've tested it in. A group of what we would classify as obese women with body fats above 32%, and a group of lean women with body fat percentages of 26% or less. And so I put them under three different regimens of these dietary resistant starches in combination with a few other ingredients that I'm just going to hold out, but I'll say that it's protein. And Jay, the evidence is compelling. I mean, to me, it's eye-popping. And so here's my answer to your question directly, is that without question, you can combine the right carbohydrates, in this case the dietary resistant starches, with the right protein, and blow it out in terms of stabilizing your blood sugar, turning on fat oxidation, and increasing muscle protein synthesis. Absolutely.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah, that's really good stuff. This is the holy grail, because that's that edge that I was talking about. Finding that edge. I did the strict paleo, and yes, clear-headed. Yes, lost a lot of body fat. Fantastic. All the good things. My skin cleared up. Fantastic protocol. And then I bonked, and it was a bonk, the kind of bonk where you just know you're junky. And I did some carbs. I did a little carb backloading after a workout, and it was like magic. It was like magic. So I know there is some sort of blend. It's a blend.
Yeah. It is a blend. You fine-tuned it, and people that have been doing it have a better capacity to fine-tune that process a little bit more. And so for people who want to take advantage of being able to enjoy, an occasional carb, grain on occasion, and balance it with the protein, there's ways to do that. And
At this stage, Dr. Arciero's PC didn't have the right combination of protein and carbs, and it bonked. We pick up the action.
I am, of course, talking to Dr. Paul Arciero, has a master's from Purdue University in Biological Sciences and Exercise Physiology, has a master's from the University of Vermont in Nutritional Sciences, and he has a doctorate in physiology, the physiology of exercise, and in 1993 he earned his postdoctoral fellowship from Washington University School of Medicine. Thanks for being with us again, Dr. Paul, for episode number 2.
Jay, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to it, and I'm sorry about that bonking situation. Have you ever had bonking happen to you, by the way? Have you ever bonked? Yeah.
I have bonked to the point where I couldn't get my brain to work.
Yeah.
I was walking around like completely. I had no glucose or glycogen in my body at all. Like my brain, there's nothing for it to run on.
Yeah, I was actually on my bike, so you can imagine the dangers of that. Miserable.
Whoa.
Powerful.
Well, let's talk about what we talked about in episode 1. So in case someone is coming into episode 2 without hearing what we talked about, because there were some really cool things. You broke some news, some nutritional news, so I highly recommend people go and check it out. We of course talked about nutrition and exercise physiology. We applied science to illuminate what fighters and all athletes should fuel their bodies with. We talked about the essentials of nutrition, and I'm not going to say what we did, but it was amazing because there was current, like, cutting edge news in there that every athlete should know about. So check out episode 1 for sure. And right when the battery was going out, I was about to ask you about Bioenergetics, which is one of the courses you teach as a professor at Skidmore College. What is Bioenergetics?
Yeah, that's a good question. People ask that all the time. It's the ability of the body to utilize the energy that is fueling the cells. So it's that go between the nutrients and the energy that we have stored within the cell and manifesting it into a cellular response, utilizing it in terms of an actual active, real-life cellular process in the body. So, the study of bioenergetics is being able to turn on those, in most cases and for most people, beneficial cellular processes and cellular response and cellular activity in the body to generate energy for the body.
So, if I'm hearing you correctly, it is the actual. It sounds like it's a metabolizing type of question. I know that, like, forgive my lack of experience in this field, but with cells, I know there's a communication and there's actually a kind of a processing where they're taking stuff in and they're excreting stuff as well. So, is this the actual efficiency with which cells uptake energy?
Yeah, absolutely. It's part of the process of bioenergetics. It's the conversion of energy in the cells into that usable cellular activity, that cellular function that our bodies need. So, when you think about it, every cell of the body is depending upon a number of different energy sources, and it's the efficiency at which those energy sources are transformed into that usable form to generate a cellular response, a cellular process, a cellular activity, muscle protein synthesis, the ability of the cell to oxidize carbohydrates and fats inside the cell. That's the process of bioenergetics.
You might have given me a good
segue. Of energy, ATP.
Oh, okay. You might have given me a good segue. Maybe not. I might be off here. But is this related in any way to the flow state?
The flow state? Is that what you said?
Yeah, the flow state. For me, when I get in that, I've only had it a few times in my life where I could run for 12 hours without.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
That's a cool place to be in. Yeah. They
find it more than I do. Yeah.
Yeah. It's often associated with peak performance. You're right, the flow state. A lot of extreme sport enthusiasts often get into that flow state. In sports psychology, it's all about being in the flow. That effortless, movement that we all have. I'm a tennis player, and so.
Let me interrupt you, dude, because this is the perfect. I just got to say this. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Wayne Dyer.
Sure.
Okay, well,
Thanks.
Wayne Dyer has this wonderful treatise on tennis in flow state, and he talks all about this one night of flow that just happened. It unfolded where he could not get to the ball, where he was moving without moving, where he didn't need to tell his body to move. He said it was magical. He could have beaten Federer on that night. Well, I don't know if he could.
That's good. Yeah.
He felt like he could.
Oh, you do? Oh, it's supreme. You know what? I will go so far to say that it's that state of being where you're right. You have your mind in a place where it's not inhibiting your neuromuscular movement, but at the same time, in terms of bioenergetics, it has to be those processes and those pathways, those biological, biochemical pathways that are generating energy, ATP, for your muscles and for all the cells of your body they are aligned. The stars are aligned metabolically inside the cells of your body, where you are producing that ATP effortlessly. You're not wasting it, inefficiently, and you've got the neuromuscular pathways jiving with each other. The brain is not getting in the way, right? You're not overthinking. That's all part of being in the flow. It's that unique place that athletes that are at the top of their game, whether it's a fighter, whether it's a tennis player, basketball player, we all see them when they're in that state. And it's an out-of-body experience where you're right, bioenergetically, things are just firing supremely efficiently, producing that ATP that those cells of your body need. And then, when you think about it, when we watch an athlete who's becoming fatigued and they're tight, they're throwing a punch and it's not really throwing, it's kind of caught in midair, that is the antithesis of peak flow and bioenergetics happening, right? And so, those things are directly aligned, and being able to match that, being able to allow that, the neuromuscular, so the brain initiates all that movement, and not to have it cluttered, and then at the same time have those neuromuscular pathways fire to the appropriate muscles with the right degree of contraction and relaxation. That's being in the flow. And it's all intimately, I have to say, Jay, predicated on nourishment, how well you fuel your body with nutrition. So if you don't have the right amount of those healthy oils, those healthy omega-3 fatty acids, for example, and those essential fats, providing the nourishment for the myelin sheath, and not to get too scientific here, but this is really important for an athlete. So surrounding every one of our nerve fibers that are generated from the brain down into the spinal cord, and those that innervate all the muscles of our body for any muscular activity, those are surrounded in a sheath called myelin, and that myelin is made up of fat. And if you don't have the appropriate nourishment feeding that myelin sheath, you're not going to have the right signal pathway, the right neuromuscular firing response going to those muscles to perform well. So I say it all the time. Fat was shunned for so many years, and what an unfortunate. That whole lipid hypothesis to disease and everything. Well, we know full well that without a healthy amount and type of fat coming in every single day, and perhaps I would even argue almost every single meal that you're eating every day, you're going to be compromising the firing of those neurons, those nerve fibers that are innervating every muscle of your body, and as a result, impacting your ability to get into the flow. So no, I think, as much as it might have sounded as a tangent, it's directly related to the topic at hand.
Yeah, it's interesting. The image that was coming to me when I was formulating my next question, where, had to do with, I was picturing in and out. I was picturing yin and yang, breathing. We are intricately associated and related to our environment. We're part of our environment. There's in and out all the time. We're taking oxygen in, we're exhaling oxygen. We're taking food in, we're exhaling it. We're taking liquids in and exhaling it. And it's that cycle and how efficiently it does it, it seems, that would give us that flow state. And that is kind of, for me, a good way for me to try to picture bioenergetics is that cleanness with which the machine runs. It's like putting really clean oil in your car so it fires cleanly. It doesn't create a lot of sediment when it fires.
I would agree 100% that's exactly what's happening with bioenergetics and the in and out process. And so, yeah, that's what we're really talking about here is maximizing and understanding what is going to allow for the most efficient in and absorption of those ideal optimal nutrients into the cells of our body to allow the greatest out or performance. That's exactly right. And that's bioenergetics.
Recap on part one so that we can segue into another subject. The recap, if you're just looking for simple answers and you just tell me what to do, and a lot of my viewers don't really care particularly about the science, but they want accurate information. So for those who just want to know what to do, Dr. Paul's takeaway is lots of small meals. Start with protein and oil in the morning, protein and oil and fiber, lots of liquid all throughout the day. Keep the metabolism high, get that good oil in there, and run cleanly. Was that a good synopsis of the bioenergetics and what to do nutritionally?
Yeah, it is. It is. And I would add, Jay, just the inclusion of those appropriate. So yeah, I mean, we can talk about hopefully in future segments the specific types of food that people want to focus on, and again, different preferences for different people. But I think that's a future show. But in terms of general application, yeah, the carbohydrate sources or those grain sources predominantly should be legume sources, and then the green leafy vegetables and the colorful vegetables. Those should be fairly abundant, and that's our fiber source. So you talk about fiber, and just to make it clear for people, there's different sources of fiber, of course. There's grains that provide us fiber. There are legumes that provide fiber, things like black beans and chickpeas and garbanzo beans, for eating hummus. And then there's also, of course, the greatest source would be the abundance of healthy and fresh vegetables that we should be, fueling our body with. And as you notice, I haven't necessarily emphasized fruit. I think there's a time and place for fruit, particularly fresh fruit, and particularly in the form of berries because of their antioxidant-rich containing properties. But that should be saved in many cases for the after exercise, after training nourishment, because it's a little bit higher in that simple sugar form, and in that case, when you need to fuel the muscles with some necessary replenishment of those depleted energy stores in the form of glycogen, then that's the appropriate time, I would say, and I tell we all do in my consulting business with clients that we work with and my own research study participants. Then it's acceptable to eat that that fruit as a source as well.
I'm going to ask you to stake your place in the battle that rages on, and there's plenty of people who are kind of a blend, but there's also plenty of people who are very prestigious and have really strong credentials, and they have staken their position on one camp. And I'm talking about the battle that's raging between vegetarians and the paleo crowd. You can listen to any doctor, any MD, any PhD on any given day, and they can make a case so strong for paleo or conversely for vegetarianism that it's amazing that those two worlds can coexist at the same time. Where do you land in the whole paleo vegan/vegetarian debate?
Yeah, so that's a good one. Yeah,
it's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing.
I do. I have a pretty strong opinion about this, and there's benefit to both, but I'm going to stake it really clear here for us. I'm a believer that there is some absolute, true, and real scientific evidence and physiological health benefit from doing both, and particularly in terms of, let's talk about the paleo as an example. So if you're gonna go paleo, the sources of that protein that should be consumed has to come from grass-fed. I think there's little argument about that, and so I'm outspoken about this, and I believe it, that when that source of animal protein, we're going to call it like it is, animal protein is coming from a grass-fed animal in its natural habitat as possible, it's eating what we ultimately want to eat, and that's foliage, that's greens that contain omega-3 rich fatty acids, it's fiber, it's an abundance of really healthy nutrients. So absolutely, I think they can coexist, believe it or not. So you can eat that healthy source of animal protein as long as it's coming from an animal source that has consumed what you want it to, and that would be the foliage, the green grass, the abundant fields that's in nature, and we have those sources. We have whey protein that's derived from animals that have fed their entire life on roaming in the green pastures. So yeah, it can happen for sure. And I would say if you want to go paleo, that's your place. Now in terms of fish, you want to obviously stay wild fish. You want to have the fish that's from the ocean, that's predominantly of fatty origin. The tuna, the salmon, the mackerel, the sardines, krill. I mean, those are all top notch in terms of animal sources. And I don't think that there's kind of an argument or an incongruency. That's a better word. I don't think there's an incongruency of eating paleo and then providing a significant source of your nourishment from vegetation. And we know that, right? You have to consume those green leafy vegetables. Now, can you do one or the other? Well, clearly not. You can't survive solely on animal meat. We have some cultures that have done it for periods of time, and their bodies have adapted to it, but clearly the vast majority of us need that balance of animal meat, animal protein, if we're going to go paleo, with some of those greens. And can you eat vegetation? Can you eat only vegetarian and get the protein that you need? You can, and we've talked about this. There are athletes out there that are quite successful that avoid animal-based products but still perform at a very high level. But you have to be very vigilant. You have to be a real sleuth when it comes to making sure that the protein sources that you're eating are as close to complete proteins as possible when you complement those vegetable sources, so those grains. So pea protein, for example, hemp protein, making sure that your legumes are matched with your grains. So I don't know if that drove the stake in the ground there, but I think it can definitely happen in a real healthy manner.
Yeah, so 2 comments on that on my part. Yeah, we have 2 outstanding athletes that come to my mind in my sport of mixed martial arts who are vegetarians who perform extremely well. Jake Shields and Mac Danzig, both vegetarians, and they win fights, and they compete at the highest level in our sport. And they would say, that eating animal products, and I don't know what their philosophical bent is on eating animal products and why they don't, but one of the comments is that animal fat, animal cholesterol is what actually clogs up the arteries, and if you look at vegetarians or vegans, they have much cleaner pipes. How would someone in the paleo community respond to that?
Yeah. Well, that's a great source of controversy because the link between animal, let's give an example, eggs have been thrown under the bus a number of times about their contribution to blood cholesterol. And the evidence is not as strong as we once believed it to be, that dietary cholesterol contributes directly to blood cholesterol. And that's because of the interplay between exogenous dietary cholesterol coming in through food that we've eaten and that which is appearing inside of our bloodstream. And we know that individuals that eat less dietary cholesterol, their bodies manufacture more cholesterol on its own. So whether there's that direct link between really healthy grass-fed sources of animal meat, in this case, animal protein and dietary cholesterol, I think is still up for debate. I don't know if we have that answer. I wouldn't want to go on record as saying that that's a known fact, that if you're eating a really pure source of grass-fed beef, that's going to contribute to an elevation in your blood cholesterol. I mean, I don't know that evidence. I haven't seen it. So that would be one response. We do know, however, that a higher intake of trans fatty acids and hydrogenated fatty acids, in some cases that are derived from vegetable sources. A classic example, of course, is margarine, right? So when we hydrogenate margarine, or when we trans fatty acid alter certain foods, certain fats, that is a much greater source of increasing blood cholesterol in a human and contributing to heart disease than, I would say, an animal source, a grass-fed source of animal meat. So I'm going to go on record on saying that I think we have pretty compelling scientific evidence with. So that would be my one take. And again, I'm not listen. In terms of following a vegan-style diet, I fully support that. Fully support that for people. You just, like I said before, have to be real. You have to be a real sleuth. You have to know exactly what you need to do on a regular basis. And these guys are highly intelligent, and there's many others that follow that that also are successful, and they know how to combine the appropriate vegetable sources, plant-based sources of protein to provide them the nourishment that their muscles need to activate protein synthesis. So it can be done. It's just more challenging, and you have to really commit to it.
If I raise my blood sugar and create a blood triglyceride level that is not favorable to health, would that turn a good fat bad? So if I was eating lots of clean protein and omega-3s, but then I ate a bowl of cereal with it, is that what could possibly be the disconnect between the two camps?
It could very well be. Yeah, it could very well be that that combination of eating really clean vegan plant-based sources, and then you throw in a grain or a refined fruit juice of some type, then yeah, I mean that's going to skyrocket triglycerides. We see that all the time, and that's it's a very good point. I like that, because when you think about a non-fat food source altering a physiological internal blood fat source such as triglycerides, I mean that's a classic example, right? I mean people that have a higher intake of refined fruit juice sources are oftentimes those with the highest levels of triglyceride, and sometimes it's baffling because they're thinking, geez, I'm eating a relatively clean fat-free diet, and here my triglycerides are going through the roof. So yeah, we can alter so we brought up two good examples of that. You have to be smart about how you're going to eat vegan or vegetarian to stay healthy, because sometimes you have some hidden sources of unhealthy food that infiltrate the body and actually contribute to a higher state of disease than those that are following something like a more paleo-based diet. Yeah, great examples.
Yeah, no, that's a good feedback. I appreciate it.
That liver loves producing triglycerides, when you got that flood of refined fructose coming into your body.
Now, well, this has been a real education on the on nutrition and the physiology and the science of nutrition. One of the other areas of specialty areas that you have is in the exercise testing and prescription space. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So yeah, as you read off at the beginning of the show, I also have degrees in physiology of exercise, and it's one I'm passionate about. In fact, I can't wait to explore this with you, Jay, further, because I'm of the school that right now, so I'm a fellow in the American College of Sports Medicine. Woo! I'm a fellow in the Obesity Society. So here I am in two of the leading organizations in the world that send out public health messages, by the way, frequently. I'm also a board member of the American Heart Association in the Capital Region. So, I serve on some fairly prominent organizations, health organizations that are leading the way and leading the charge in educating the public on how to be healthier. So on that topic, I'm of the strong belief that right now our public health message when it comes to exercise training and prescription is over the top extreme. And let me explain. Right now what we have as recommendations to engage in aerobic exercise, resistance exercise, high intensity exercise, flexibility, balance type exercise, it's excessive for a lot of people. We know the host of programs that are made public, through various, mail order or internet and media hyped and driven that really put people over the top in terms of what they feel is expected of them to perform on a regular daily basis, almost in many cases to exhaustion. And so what I'm talking about are these extreme exercise programs that are predicated on holding people hostage to a level of exercise that is in some cases beyond what a full-time trained elite athlete does, right? I mean, we all know full-time elite trained athletes, having played at a high level. Myself, I still compete on a national basis in tennis. You can't afford to deplete and to tax your body daily at a level that exhausts it. It's just not going to have enough time to recover. So I'm glad you asked that question, because just as I guess directed I can be with nutritional recommendations, perhaps even more so with exercise, that I think we need to reevaluate the ideal remedy, the ideal amount of exercise that is required to confer optimal health and performance for people. So it's not what we think it is. It's not sometimes what we hear through the media waves. And so I'm excited to talk about that. I have my own exercise protocol that I've tested in the laboratory, that I've consulted with my consulting business, Nourishing Science, to thousands of people with really impressive and powerful results. And so I'm excited to share it with the listeners and to particularly athletes that are on their journey to peak performance.
I know there's two schools of camp, maybe more than that, but the two that I'm familiar with are sort of what I'll call the grinders, who are the people who go out and do marathons, and they love it. They get the endorphins, and they'll go out and run 10 miles a day and then train for a marathon or even an ultra marathon. And then there are those who are more of the explosive style, who say you can go in to the gym and if you do 15 or 20 minutes right, have much better results than a grinder who is training for 3, 4, 5 hours a day. Yeah. And of course the famous picture that's going around, I don't know if you've ever seen this picture, but there's a picture of two runners. One is a marathon runner, and he looks almost like a genocide victim. He has no flesh on his body at all. And then they put a sprinter next to him who is absolutely jacked. So clearly the person who's putting that picture out is in favor of the explosive type of exercise. Yeah. But where do you fall in those two camps?
Jay, these are awesome questions, and this is what I love. I'm telling you, I'm from my heart now. I'm speaking from my heart, because this is the essence of what I do. This is the essence of what I do. I love that question. Here's where I fall. You need both, but you need to do it with the balance of what your ultimate goal is in mind. So if you want to be able to, run on the beach, I'm thinking of, a grandmother or grandfather, and this is who sometimes I consult with regularly. If they want to be able to enjoy their time with their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren on the beach, and take a walk, throw a frisbee, play kadima, whatever it is that they want to do on the beach, they need to have that balance in mind. Whereas that elite trained athlete, I was the consultant for a professional hockey team 20 miles north of here that were an affiliate of the Philadelphia Flyers. And that was great joy. I'm trying to get these guys to maximize that explosive power. And even no matter who it was, the grandmother, the grandfather, or the elite trained professional hockey player, you need a balance of both of those. So you can't do one or the other. That's going to create an imbalance in the body. It's going to cause a disharmony in the body. And so this protocol that I've devised, you need both, and I'll tell you why. Yes, you could train like the sprinter and have that awesome cut, ripped, muscular body, but you'd be missing out on one of the most favorable benefits that occurs from an endurance, aerobic, steady state bout of exercise. We know we have convincing scientific evidence that shows that when you perform a submaximal bout of exercise of 60 minutes or longer, you are opening up your endorphin receptors in your brain and allowing them to be flooded with those endorphins that are being released. And so that puts you in that state of euphoria, that natural high. Now imagine if I were to say, Jay, listen, the only way to get that body and to get that physique that we all want is to do that highly explosive trained exercise. That would be completely naive and in many ways ignorant on my part. So you can achieve that body, but man, if you don't have that regular aerobic, sustained, low level, 60% of maximum, because that is what maximally increases brain blood flow, and miss out on those endorphins that are raging through the brain at that level of exercise, well, that would be unfortunate.
Well, I'll tell you, I think I know where your sweet spot is because I saw you light up on that question, and that is clearly your bailiwick. That's your middle lane right there, and you feel so passionate about it. There's so much more that I wanted to get to, but we've run out of time. He has a master's from Purdue University in biological science, exercise physiology, a master's from the University of Vermont in nutritional sciences, a doctorate in the physiology of exercise, and of course he earned his postdoctoral fellowship from Washington University School of Medicine. It has been such a treat, Paul. Thank you for spending time with us today.
Jay, it's been a pleasure, and like I said, I'm hopeful and excited about future shows with you.
Yeah,
Great
we're
stuff.
definitely going to bring you back because you're right in our middle lane. This is exactly the type of conversations we want to be having, high-end, cutting-edge conversations about nutrition and exercise for our viewers. So thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
All right, I'm Jay Adams. Thank you for joining us in our quest to go right at life, clear-headed and shredded. We'll see you next time.
For our full schedule of fights on the NBC Sports Network, CW and ABC affiliates, visit UnitedFightAlliance.com. United Fight Alliance. United we fight.